So you want a six-figure job without spending 4 years at university. No student debt, no cubicle, and you start earning while you learn. Elevator mechanic feels like a secret career. The national median sits around $106,000 a year. High school can be enough to start. The apprenticeship is paid. The work is technical and hidden behind doors people use every day. The path looks beautifully simple. Pass the test, enter the apprenticeship, learn the machines, and climb toward full mechanic pay, good pay, strong benefits, a rare skill. But there is one problem. Passing the test does not get you the apprenticeship. It only gets you an interview. That interview decides your rank on a local hiring list. Contractors call from that list only when they need apprentices. You can do everything right and still wait until the list expires. That is the first surprise. The apprenticeship is paid, but local demand controls access. And if the call comes, the six-figure wage still does not belong to you. New apprentices begin near half of a mechanic's wage. Full competence needs roughly 8,000 supervised work hours plus classroom study. Reaching mechanic status usually takes 4 to 5 years of safe progress. That hidden delay completely changes the bargain. The real question is not whether elevator mechanics can earn 6 figures. The wage data shows that many already do. You must understand what you become before anyone pays you that amount. Most people picture a repair worker opening one panel. They replace one broken part and send the car upstairs. That familiar picture is much too small. You are trained to own an entire chain of machines. That chain moves human beings through a building. Doors are only one link beside locks, switches, motors, and brakes. Behind them sit cables, hydraulics, controls, sensors, and emergency systems. The first symptom can point toward the wrong cause, so you isolate the equipment before touching the failure. Then you diagnose the real cause. You correct the fault, verify the chain, confirm each safety function, and record the work. Only then can the equipment return to service. That is where the real career begins. Now walk through the door, because you are not applying to a giant national labor market. In 2024, the entire occupation contained about 24,200 jobs. The government projects roughly 2,000 openings per year, and many replace people who retire or leave. This is a small trade, and that matters because entry happens locally. A city may open a recruitment when contractors expect demand, while another local may still be working through its existing list. You cannot assume that a good national outlook creates a seat where you live. The legal minimum also tells you very little about your real odds. A high school diploma may let you apply. It does not place you near the top of the list. Consider the union route because its process is unusually visible. It is not the only route. Employers and industry associations also sponsor apprenticeships, and local rules vary, but this pathway exposes the hidden arithmetic clearly. First, you need the diploma or equivalent, authorization to work, and the required age. Then you submit your documents during a local recruitment window and pay a $25 testing fee. The cheap application looks encouraging, and next comes the elevator industry aptitude test. It covers arithmetic, reading comprehension, mechanical comprehension, and general tool knowledge. 70% is the passing threshold, but passing only moves you forward. You then enter a standardized interview with labor and employer representatives. They score your answers, average the scores, and use the result to create your position on the local hiring list. A 70% interview score can earn a rank. It does not make the rank competitive. Now the trade tests something a diploma cannot show. Can you explain a real problem you solved? Can you follow direction, work with another person, and describe what you did when the first answer failed? Mechanical experience and construction exposure can help, as can a small project where you built or repaired something. Safety certifications may strengthen your evidence, but none guarantees a higher rank. That distinction matters because the test measures whether you can continue. The interview tries to estimate whether a contractor should invest years of supervised work in you. Then the local economy takes over. When signatory contractors need apprentices, candidates are called from the list. When the work is absent, the list does not move. The training program says local recruitment lists expire every 2 years, or after everyone on the list has been hired. The list controls the clock. Your first career asset is therefore not a tool. It is your rank on a moving local list. You need a viable local market, a competitive rank, and enough flexibility to answer when the call arrives. If your household needs a predictable start date, the uncertainty has a real price. You may keep another job while waiting, train elsewhere, or eventually reapply. But until a contractor hires you, the apprenticeship is only a possibility. This is the first place the six-figure fantasy can fail. Suppose the call does arrive, and you report for your first day. You are not an inexpensive mechanic, you are an apprentice working under a licensed, experienced mechanic. Your output is useful, but your judgment is still supervised. The wage reflects that difference because first-year apprentices commonly begin around 50% of the mechanic rate. Their percentage rises as they complete the program. The wage comes later. The school bill may be zero in the union program, but the time bill is not. The program requires 8,000 hours of on-the-job learning across 4 yearly stages. It also runs 8 semesters of related instruction. The classroom schedule is typically 4 hours, one night each week across an 18-week semester. You work and then study as the curriculum moves through safety, mathematics, blueprint reading, applied physics, electrical theory, electronics, and the machinery itself. The equipment does not respect the border between trades. A fault can cross mechanical, electrical, hydraulic, and digital systems before you locate it. That is why the training is long. You are also learning how to reason next to someone who already owns the consequences. The experienced mechanic does not merely show you where a component sits. They show you which assumption to test first, which energy source remains dangerous, and which apparently normal condition cannot be trusted. You begin with visible work by carrying tools, preparing materials, reading plans, cleaning components, and assisting with assembly. As your skill grows, the questions become less visible. Why does one door reopen while the car behaves differently under load? Why does a fault vanish as the room cools? Parts are concrete, patterns are not. Parts are concrete, but patterns are not. And the 8,000 hours build a library of them. Classroom theory gives those patterns names, while supervision keeps your early guesses from becoming public hazards. After the required courses and field hours, you become eligible for the mechanic examination. Passing moves you to full mechanic status in this pathway. Even then, the learning does not stop. Modern elevators use computerized control systems alongside old mechanical and hydraulic equipment. A building may contain technology older than you, a recent controller, and a modernization assembled across several generations. The person who stops learning slowly loses the ability to diagnose the whole chain, so the apparent shortcut around education disappears. You did not avoid education, you changed who pays for it, where it happens, and what failure costs. Now consider one ordinary service call. A building reports that an elevator will not leave a floor. The first complaint sounds simple. The doors keep reopening while people wait and the building demands restored service. Pressure arrives immediately. You cannot begin by replacing the door operator because the complaint named the door. A door symptom may come from a lock, an alignment problem, a safety circuit, a sensor, a controller input, or another condition upstream. The symptom is only the entrance. First, you gather the report by asking which floor, how often, under what load, and whether anything changed recently. The answers narrow the field, but none proves the cause. Then you control the equipment because elevator systems can contain electrical, mechanical, and hydraulic energy. A stopped car is not necessarily isolated. Gravity and stored pressure remain, and a remote command can still arrive. You establish the safe working state before diagnosis becomes physical. Next, you reproduce the symptom under the permitted procedure. You inspect the relevant locks, switches, connections, and alignments while comparing controller information with the print and service record. Now the chain becomes visible. A passenger presses a button, and the controller receives a demand. The safety circuit must confirm acceptable conditions before the doors close and prove locked. The brake and drive system must respond while position information remains credible. The car must then stop and level correctly before the doors open again. Every link can veto movement. This is why an elevator that does not move may be protecting people. The same symptom can mean the safety system is doing its job. Your task is not to defeat the veto, but to discover why the veto exists. Suppose inspection reveals a misaligned door component and you correct the alignment. That is still not the end. You test the door operation, verify the lock, and run the equipment through the required conditions. You check that the car stops and levels properly, then confirm the repair created no new problem elsewhere. Only then do you record the work. The service record looks administrative until the next intermittent fault appears. A precise note tells the next mechanic what changed, what was tested, and what the equipment did before it left your hands. Memory fades, but accurate records compound across the entire service route. Only after the complete chain passes can you return the elevator to normal service. The building receives movement again, but what you actually sold was justified confidence. That is the smallest repeated unit of this career. Receive a fault, control the energy, diagnose the system, repair the cause, test the chain, document the result, and safely return service. Remove any step and the economics change. Skip diagnosis and you waste parts and time. Skip energy control and you expose people to movement. Skip full testing and the fault may return. Skip documentation and the next call begins with less information. That reliable completion creates the wage and protects the next person entering the car. But not every mechanic repeats the same day. The occupation contains several different operating worlds. In new installation, you follow plans and build a system inside an active construction project. You assemble cars, install rails and doors, connect controls and motors, and test new equipment. Heavy components, heights, deadlines, and other trades make correct sequence the central problem. In modernization, you replace old drives, pumps, doors, or controllers while the building still needs vertical transportation. New equipment must cooperate with existing structure and code requirements, making integration the central problem. In maintenance and service, you keep installed equipment available. You lubricate, adjust, inspect, troubleshoot, answer breakdowns, and preserve records across a route where uncertainty is the central problem. Major repair adds another scale, because crews may replace cables, doors, bearings, motors, hydraulic pumps, or control panels. Rigging and cutting tools enter the picture, making controlled disruption the central problem. These worlds reward overlapping skills, but not identical ones. BLS notes that maintenance and repair workers generally need more knowledge of electronics, hydraulics, and electricity than installers. Your assignment shapes your hidden asset. Installation can build speed, coordination, and planning discipline, while service builds a large diagnostic pattern library. Modernization can teach you how generations of technology collide, while major repair builds rigging and system replacement judgment. The title stays the same even when the career experience changes completely. The economic product also changes from one assignment to another. Installation converts a building plan into new transportation capacity. Modernization extends the useful life of existing equipment. Maintenance preserves availability, and repair recovers it after failure. Availability sounds abstract until a building loses it. Office workers may be redirected toward fewer elevators. A hospital may need dependable movement between clinical floors. A residential building may contain people who cannot simply take the stairs. The mechanic does not control those building needs, but every call inherits their urgency. That creates a constant tension between fast restoration and correct restoration. That pressure never disappears. The two are not always enemies. Preventive maintenance can find wear before a shutdown. Clean records can reveal a recurring fault before another mechanic repeats the same search. A well-planned modernization can reduce obsolete components that are difficult to support. Each action buys future availability. This explains why demand does not depend only on new skyscrapers. BLS expects construction of elevator-equipped buildings to slow, yet still projects 5% occupational growth from 2024 through 2034. Existing equipment must be maintained, updated, repaired, and adapted for accessibility while controls become more sophisticated. The installed base keeps creating work. It also creates variety. One route may contain modern traction elevators with digital controls, older hydraulic units, platform lifts, and equipment altered repeatedly. A mechanic cannot carry one frozen mental model from building to building. You carry a method instead. The method is the moat. That method starts with evidence and ends with verification, but it must operate under commercial pressure. A service company tracks labor, return visits, routes, parts, and customer expectations. Buildings track downtime and complaints. The mechanic stands where those pressures meet the safety chain. Random part replacement performs badly in that system. It consumes inventory, extends downtime, and may leave the real fault untouched. A fast but incomplete repair can create a callback that erases the apparent time saved. A repeat visit exposes weak judgment. A correct first visit is not always possible because intermittent faults and unavailable parts exist. The career advantage comes from making uncertainty explicit. What was observed? What was ruled out? What remains? And what condition would justify the next action? Communication becomes technical work. Federal occupation data shows that dealing with customers or the public is important in this occupation. You may need to explain why equipment stays out of service even when the car appears normal. You may also need to explain why a quick restart is not proof of a completed repair. Trust depends on that explanation. As your judgment improves, the value of supervision changes. Early in the apprenticeship, supervision prevents your uncertainty from reaching the public. Later, your own judgment may guide an apprentice, coordinate a crew, or support an adjuster's final tuning. Progression is therefore more than a new title. It expands the consequences you are trusted to control. A mechanic in charge coordinates work, an adjuster fine-tunes complex equipment, and a supervisor accepts responsibility for other people's output. That trust can compound for decades. Your employer also changes the bargain. About 84% of the occupation works for building equipment contractors. A smaller share works directly for government or educational institutions. Contractor work may connect your schedule to project deadlines and service routes. A public employer may offer a different mix of stability and benefits. Location changes the bargain again because legal authority is not nationally uniform. Most states require licensing, but the requirements are not one national card. California, for example, requires a certified mechanic to document at least 3 years of industry experience, work for a certified company, and show approved apprenticeship completion or pass a qualifying state exam. Renewal includes continuing education, so legal permission still depends on current competence. New York City adds another layer. Elevator work there generally requires both a New York State mechanic license and a city technician license. The city regulates more than 70,000 elevators and escalators. But density does not remove the licensing gate. The same title can therefore mean different legal mobility in different places. Now add the body because the work can place you in cramped machine rooms, crawl spaces, pits, and elevator shafts, sometimes at heights amid grease and dust, through hot or cold conditions. BLS says workers may need to lift equipment weighing up to 200 pounds. You do not lift every component alone. The physical demand still belongs in the equation. Then add the clock because most mechanics work full-time, while emergency repairs and construction deadlines can create overtime. Repair workers may be on call at any hour. More hours can raise annual income, but the same hours can remove evenings, weekends, and predictability. Extra hours bring revenue while carrying a cost. That is why this trade cannot be judged from a list of advantages on one side and disadvantages on the other. Every advantage is produced by the same mechanism that creates its price. Paid technical formation replaces a conventional tuition bill, but it also puts school after a physical workday and makes safe progress the condition for moving up. A diagnostic skill grows across mechanical, electrical, hydraulic, and digital systems. But the learning never freezes because old equipment and modern controls coexist. Strong mechanic pay and benefits reward trusted judgment, but the responsibility follows you into emergency calls, construction deadlines, and the moment a building wants movement before the complete chain deserves trust. That pairing changes your decision. If you only want the headline wage, the delayed start, apprentice rate years, and loss of schedule control will feel like obstacles hiding the real job. If you value paid formation and compounding technical judgment, those same years can become the asset that later separates a parts replacer from the person others trust with an entire system. The benefit is not separate from the cost. The benefit is built through it. Now we can build the real career equation. The headline wage is only one term. Your long-run return equals the years you spend at full mechanic value, plus benefits and paid extra hours, minus hiring delay. Apprentice rate years, schedule disruption, physical wear, and safety exposure. One variable multiplies everything. Reliable judgment. Reliable judgment helps you finish the apprenticeship. It protects your ability to keep working. It earns harder assignments and makes other people willing to trust your diagnosis. As the years pass, it can support advancement toward mechanic in charge, adjuster, or supervisor. That multiplier explains the wage spread better than the headline alone. In May 2024, the national median was roughly $106,000. The lowest 10% earned less than $55,000. The highest 10% earned more than $149,000. These figures do not guarantee every applicant the same path. Results vary by stage, location, assignment, and hours. An apprentice percentage is not the same as a mechanic rate. Extra hours differ from base pay, and a high-cost city differs from every local market. The national median proves the reward exists. It does not predict your first 5 years. A real public posting shows both sides. A 2026 New York City Housing Authority listing advertised almost $65 an hour, plus a defined pension benefit. That is a strong career outcome. That job posting required several active licenses and roughly 4.5 to 5 years of qualifying experience. The attractive number appeared after the gates, not before them. That is the equation working correctly. Now stress test that equation against events where reliable judgment failed to protect the chain. In October 2021, according to an OSHA accident record, a 28-year-old elevator worker entered a pit for maintenance. A bypass wire prevented the pit stop switch from controlling the equipment as expected. When a resident called the elevator, the car descended and killed him. The record is difficult for a reason. The failure was not simply a missing repair skill. It was a broken assumption about whether the system could move. One control appeared to establish safety, while another condition defeated it. An older OSHA case exposes the other end of the job. A helper and mechanic had finished service and were returning an elevator to normal operation. Temporary jumpers used around a door interlock had not been removed. When the control changed from inspection to run, the car moved immediately and killed the helper. The repair was over, but the danger was not because restoration remained incomplete. These cases do not mean every elevator call is fatal. They show why the operating unit must include energy control, verification, restoration, and final testing. OSHA's hazardous energy guidance covers electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, thermal, and other stored sources. Unexpected startup or released energy can crush, burn, cut, or electrocute the person servicing a machine. In this trade, safety is not a separate lecture attached to productive work. Safety determines whether the work is complete. Those failures change the winning model from quick repair to ordered uncertainty reduction. The strongest mechanic is not the person who moves fastest toward the broken part. It is the person who reduces uncertainty in the correct order. First, control what can move, and then define the symptom. Test one explanation against the system, repair the cause, and restore every temporary condition. Finally, prove the full chain before people can return. Slow can be fast when deliberate control prevents repeated diagnosis and dangerous rework. A careful first 5 minutes may prevent an hour of random part swapping. A complete service note may shorten the next call. A refusal to normalize a bypass may protect an entire crew. This discipline compounds quietly, and so does humility. Equipment, codes, and controllers all change. A trusted mechanic keeps learning because yesterday's pattern can become today's bad assumption. Now run 2 futures from the same starting point. In both, you meet the minimum requirements, pass the aptitude test, Complete the interview and receive a usable rank. You live in the same place and want the same career. Only hiring timing and progression change in the favorable future. Local contractor demand moves the list quickly. You answer the call, begin near half the mechanic rate, and complete your 8 semesters and 8,000 hours on schedule. 4 or 5 years later, you pass the mechanic examination. You then move into service work, where each completed call expands your diagnostic library. You accept some overtime without building your entire income around it. You keep your licenses current, so years at full mechanic value begin relatively early. The 6-figure headline becomes plausible. In the conservative future, the same list moves slowly. You wait until the 2-year list approaches expiration, then reapply or enter through a later recruitment. Once hired, work availability and training stretch the journey toward the long end of the 4 to 5 year range. You still reach mechanic status, but you arrive several years later. Your later hourly rate may look similar, but your cumulative result does not. You lost years that could have been spent progressing through apprentice percentages and then earning at mechanic value. If you rely on constant overtime to close the gap, the schedule cost rises too. And there is a harsher possibility. The call never comes before the list expires. That is why a career plan needs a waiting rule. Decide how long you can remain available, what work you will do meanwhile, and when you will pursue another route. Hope is not a timeline, especially when your household depends on predictable income. The two futures reveal the scarce advantage. It is not merely passing the test. It is reaching a competitive position, surviving the training years, and becoming reliably safe enough to keep compounding after the full wage arrives. Now return to the elevator button if you only want the salary. In the absence of college tuition, this career may disappoint you. The education is long, entry timing is uncertain, and the work can invade your schedule, test your body, and punish careless assumptions. But if you want paid technical formation, visible responsibility, and a skill that grows across mechanical, electrical, hydraulic, and digital systems, the bargain can be unusually strong. You must want the responsibility too. When most people press the button, they see a door and expect movement. The mechanic behind that movement is not paid simply to make the car go. You are paid to know when it must not move. You are paid to find the reason, control the danger, restore the system, and place human beings back inside only when the complete chain deserves their trust. The 6-figure career hidden behind every elevator is not a shortcut around education. It is a long apprenticeship built on justified confidence.